really excited about today's conversation because we get to learn from Judy Riege, someone who has spent more than 25 years helping leaders, teams, and individuals step into their best performance. Judy is a leadership mentor and coach who's passionate about mentoring the next generation. She brings together insights from neuroscience, psychology, and leadership theory to help people develop the superpowers of emotional intelligence and shared leadership, skills that drive culture, resilience, and breakthrough results. Since 2017, she's worked with over 20 Olympic and Paralympic programs, including Canada's women's national hockey team that captured gold in Beijing. And now, as their performance coach on the road to Milan Cortina 2026, she's fully embedded with the team, helping the athletes, coaches, and staff push towards their next level of greatness. In this episode, we're going to talk about what it takes to coach the mental side of high performance, how Judy sees burnout affecting young athletes, and what leadership lessons from Olympic sport can inspire all of us in everyday life. Judy, welcome to Retaining Purpose.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Judy, before we dive into today's conversation, you had a very exciting thing come down the pipe about 7 to 10 days ago. Would you care to share that with us?
So, late this summer, I was asked to join the women's national hockey team as their performance coach. Very different from, say, a mental performance consultant that often our teams have, and really looking at what is the overall environment that this team that's already world class, what do we need to do to take them next level to lock in another gold medal? So no pressure, as I was told, but pretty exciting for someone who... Well, I guess for me, I've always sort of considered myself in the business of making people better and being high performance. But the irony for me is the fact that I've never actually played the game of hockey in my life. And I feel incredibly privileged at the work that I get to do in sport because I'm bringing a different lens around what it means to human in a high performance way, I think. And I think it's in the humaning better together that we take the technical, tactical, and all the systems that allow us to win, no matter whether it's on the ice or on the court or any other kind of playing field. I think that's the piece we often ignore. And so I'm excited.
It's an incredible honor, and I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
It's, I think hockey in general, we can agree in Canada is that is the Olympic sport in winter. And yeah, it's you look how our women's team has performed over the decades and the incredible leaders that have been generated from those teams. It's, what an incredible honor. So I'm super excited for you. And so This would also mean, I just want to clarify, when they do win gold, you would also be coming home with a gold medal, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Crazy. That's exciting.
It is. Yeah. Who would have thunk? I would tell you, never in my career I would have thought that. So it's kind of an interesting space.
Okay. So Judy, with your new role with the Canadian women's hockey team, what does that mean to you on a personal level?
It's funny because, so my new role, it's kind of part-time and I've still got my practice and my business. I think there's an element for me personally, it is, my opportunity to take 30 years worth of organizational experience working with leaders at all levels. And really exploring, for me, what's the 1% difference? Because this team, I've known this team since 2019.
Right, because that's when you started as an advisor, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was asked to come in around 2019 to help change the culture in the locker room so we could change the color on the of the medal on the ice. That was basically what was asked, and it's so funny because, many of these players. I've gotten to know them over the years. Their lives have changed. I've sort of had a front row seat, a backstage pass. Kind of their evolution has also been part of mine because I think when you get a chance to go into an environment, any Paralympic or Olympic environment, when I think about the athletes and the privilege of working with young people, I find it incredibly energizing. I love their perspective on the world. I love them challenging and questioning some of the stuff we're talking about. Why does this matter? How does this help us do this as a team or where? And so connecting the dots is always really exciting. So for me personally, it is truly an opportunity to go on a journey with a team that's already great really being able to sort of go deeper into what does the sustainable long-term greatness look like, sound like, and feel like? Like, how do we make not only what's going to happen in Milan, what's the next level of integration so that there's a legacy?
Right. And so do you think from a professional standpoint then, what would have been the catalyst for the Olympic Committee or whoever made this decision to say, okay, we're going to go from simply advising to actually integrating Judy and the role into the fabric of this women's national hockey team?
So I kind of need to zoom out a little bit and sort of say that I've been a square peg trying to fit in the round hole of sport, if you could want to put it that way, for a long time. My first foray into sport was actually facilitating the first strategic plan for Own the Podium in 2007, the entity that looks at targeted funding. And so I got a chance to facilitate that conversation going into the Vancouver Games, did a bit of the debrief. My introduction to women's hockey was actually helping then GM and head coach Mel Davidson build the longer term game plan for women's hockey in this country. So while they were preparing for, I believe it was the Sochi Games, or Pyeongchang, I think it was Sochi. I was sort of interviewing alumni and looking at, those involved in the women's game for a long period of time. And then happenstance turned into me becoming part of the Canada Coach Enhancement Program and teaching emotional intelligence as part of a leadership program that was done across Canada for a number of years. And it was in that process of being faculty, for lack of a better term, that I was introduced to the GM, Gina Kingsbury, and as well as the coach, Troy Ryan. And so we started an experiment, which is what happens when you take this leadership stuff you do and actually bring it into this environment. And I was like, okay, well, I know it works because I've done it before.
Sure, absolutly. You've seen it in other
the corporate
spaces.
Space.
Yep.
Yeah. And I spent a decade in classrooms with young people as kids as young as grade 3 teaching this stuff.
Right.
So this idea of mentoring the future and building, I think we take too long and wait too long to bring in social, emotional, and leadership learning to our young people. I think we're not teaching them those skills soon enough.
Yeah, and I think you definitely see that. And we're going to touch on it a little bit later, but just in the intensity of sport nowadays. It used to be back when, I'm 51, back when I was playing hockey, and I was far from an Olympic athlete, I can assure you. But I played hockey, competitive golf, and everything, and it was just it was sport, right? To me, the definition of youth sports has just shifted so radically it's so intense for these kids now. But it's interesting to me that in 2007, so this becomes a conversation at the Own the Podium level, and what did it feel like going into that? Like, what was the reception to, hey, we're going to start talking about mental health, essentially, right? And how that can actually shape high performing athletes, because it must have been pretty new, and I'm sure there were some pretty old school attitudes that maybe it could have rubbed the wrong way.
You know what? I think yes and no, because I think often in all the sectors I walk into, there's a language and there's what we know. And often I get to come in and say, let's confirm what we know and what we don't know. And so much of the work that I have done is less in the mental health and mental performance space, which, obviously mindset and skill set is part of it. I'm really around this idea of leading yourself and leading together. And I think that has sort of been a shift in thinking about leadership, less as a position and much more as a mindset, and starting to look at teamwork as not just putting a group of people together and saying you're going to figure it out and make it work. It's actually helping teams make the choices they need to make to bring all of the different skills and experiences of each person together, and how do you make it work? And I think, whether it's I'm doing it in education, whether I'm doing it in business, whether I'm doing it in sport, at the end of the day, human beings, we're all wired more or less the same way.
Sure.
And it's tapping into that, if that makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. So is there an opportunity now, and I would have to think from your end, even when we talk about mentality and approaching an opportunity or a challenge, you're all in on this now, right? No longer an advisor. You're part of the team. How does that change your approach, or does it change your approach as you start to get involved with prepping for 2026?
It's a great question. It does change. I mean, I think when you go in thinking you know people, but then you're fully immersed in an environment, I feel like I've just traveled and been learning a new language. So it's that idea of, here's what I know, but I'm learning what I don't know. And I'm allowing myself to really sit in a place of curiosity. And rather than come in and say, I have the answers, so I've really said, let's go in and just sit. I'll just sit and watch. And I'm going to be really curious. Why do we do this? Or tell me how these things connect. And so I see this camp and the next one I go to as really my space to just stay in a place of observation and curiosity, because I think the risk for me to go in thinking I needed to change things right away, or that I know the answers and what they need to do, I think would be, one, arrogant, and two, irresponsible.
Yeah. So you're going to be the creepy lady in the back corner in the rink in your gray Canada Olympic attire. I'm getting that one out there now.
I know, but I'm actually not at the back corner of the rink. I mean, the best part is Troy Ryan said, I want you right in everything. And so I'm on the bench during practice, and I'm I'm in everywhere where the players and the coaches and the staff are. So I'm fully invested, and I have a curriculum that I deliver over the course of camp all the time. Like, there's learning we're doing as a collective of 50 that I'm leading, but they're also teaching me about the way we do things around here. And that's what I call culture, is the way we do things around here. And I see my focus for this program is 3 phases. Have we got a culture that's going to allow us to repeat the performance and actually improve the performance to be this group of Americans with this group of Canadians? So culturally, have we got the environment that's going to bring out the best in everyone, from top to bottom, bottom to top, and all the way around? Leadership, what is that looking like individually? There's leadership group with the athletes. There's obviously the leadership group for the women's program. Then you've got the way coaches lead. And then the last thing is communication. And it's looking at, what are the moments that we make matter, and how are we connecting and creating understanding and clarity around what it is we are doing and what are we not, which is also strategy, right? So it's this bigger lens where I'm like, these are the 3 spaces I hang out with, and this is the stuff I'm going to, in conversation and in observation, help the team sort of either know this is really good, don't change it,
right?
Or here's some things, can I suggest something?
Right.
Would you be open to? And then, like I say, they're used to me kind of doing my sessions. And so they're workshops, and we do hands-on experiential learning around a skill or a space or a mindset that we're trying to build.
What is the challenge for you? When you say looking at it through the lens, what is the challenge for you? Because you've been with them now, even advisory, for 6 years. So what is the challenge for you now to always come to the next group of athletes and coaches looking through a fresh lens, right? Because people change, personalities change, coaching styles change, playing styles change. How hard is that for you as someone being brought in to help this group become better leaders, not only individually, but as a team, to approach it with a fresh lens through Judy's eyes?
I know this is going to sound really lame when I say it's not that hard, because I'm hardwired to meet people where they are now, not where they were. And so I think that's just a mindset I have, is that, every day we're evolving. Some of us evolve faster or not through intention and experience or circumstance. But, even in the advisory role, let's just put this into perspective. I might see them 3 times a year. And so there's space and gaps in between. And so I always think of this idea of, Peter Block says, connect before content. Without relatedness, no learning can happen. And so I always start with connection. And then we can move into content, or we can start to create something new. But if I don't know where I'm starting from, I can add no value. I'm really just then almost offering an opinion and advice. And I
Right.
don't know about you, my experience is most people don't like advice.
No, exactly. And it's interesting. So it really does mean, for your role now, it's getting to know all the individuals that are part of this team, whether it is coaches, management, players. And
so if I can, there's only a third of this group that I don't know as well. And
okay, so that was going to be one of my questions is who is still there and who is new to the group? We don't need names, but you're basically saying 2/3 is continuing and 1/3 is unfamiliar with Judy.
Yeah. Yep. Or they are familiar to a small amount. And then, so those this is their first Olympics or their first go. We are doing extra work at camp around catching them up on some of the things that are the fabric of the culture of the way they do things. So we're accelerating, think of it like an onboarding process. So I get to know them, they get to know me, but we're also accelerating them around some of the frameworks and the learning and the skill development that we started in 2019 into Beijing. So we're like, how do we catch you up on this? So that still becomes part of the fabric of this program as you're still doing the work with the rest of the program on where we're going next. So there is quite a high level of familiarity, which is really a gift. And when I think about other teams and programs that I've been involved with, I've never been able to go this deep into the programming, but we certainly start where they are, and we just have this journey that around learning around at the individual, at the team, and at the collective level.
And I'm sure those relationships that have been developed over the previous 6 years, they're almost a bit of a network of sub coaches, assistant coaches, right? Because they're going to be there because they know where this is going, and so they're also going to be walking alongside this new 1/3 into the Olympic hockey team and bringing that forward, which is great. You got advocates. Bringing this forward. One thing I was wondering, so when we talk about, it's actually kind of crazy to me sitting here, I'm having a conversation with somebody who's going to be going to the Olympics. That's kind of cool. But when we talk about athletes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't care if you're an Olympic athlete or a kid playing club hockey. You end up in moments of stress and anxiety with what you're going to do. And I would almost say it would probably be somewhat elevated at the Olympic level. One thing I read and I've heard is that high-performing athletes, so the best of the best, find a way to turn their stress and anxiety into excitement, where those of us that are untrained find a way to turn it into fear, and it makes us afraid to go and do it. And high-performing people even, I should say, not necessarily just athletes, they manage to turn that inner feeling into just something fun and exciting to do. Does that ring true to you?
I'm smiling because, whether you're 9 or whether you're an Olympic or Paralympic athlete, I think one of the things you touched on is this idea of fear. So fear is our oldest emotion. So we're all going to have it. It just looks differently at different stages. And the interesting thing often that I run into with athletes, so I also have the opportunity, I get to work with all of the high performance programs, male, female, and para in hockey, and have. I'm really grateful for the partnership I have with Hockey Canada. And, it's often this idea of like, how do I handle this? And what do I deal with this? And fear or imposter syndrome is something every single one of us has, because we have this inherent hardwiring as humans where we're primed for threat detection. And most of it we're looking for, do I belong? Am I part of this group? Right? So there's that piece. And so we're hardwired for connection, and we're primed for threat detection. And the threat detection we're constantly looking for is, am I seen? Am I heard? Am I part of this group? Am I not? And I think we can posture. And I think as you get maturity, and this is some of the work that I do around personal leadership, is, well, who are you? Don't try and fit in. Be you.
Right. And that's why you're here.
Yeah. And, whether I'm working with athletes, whether I'm working with entrepreneurs, or whether I'm working with, multinationals, executive teams, the big thing is helping people take off the mask and appreciate the whole person in the process. And that fear, the antidote to fear is courage. And the only way we find courage is we actually can name the fear. I'm afraid of this. I'm worried about this. I'm embarrassed about the fact that I didn't make that shot. How do I perform in a way that I don't get into the car with my parents after a practice and get, coached again?
Right.
It's just becomes this place and space where it's like, I guess I see myself as helping people name and notice what's going on for them, and then finding a way to actually find out what is true for them, and then where do they keep going from that. I have an incredible amount, and I've been lucky enough to work alongside some incredible mental performance consultants and psychologists in this country who do a lot of that mental work with our highest athletes. And so I do think there's a lot of that flipping it from an excitement to wherever, whereas I'd say my job is around how do you want to be? And what are the things we can get solid and landing around the way you lead yourself in this process when you're stuck or in that higher performance space. I do some work in that, but also at the highest level with our Olympic and Paralympic athletes, I'm very clear that is not my space.
Right. So it really does come down to finding a way to give them the confidence and comfort in their moment. Right. Yeah, even in the team environment.
Mm-hmm. I tend to sort of take a bigger macro place. A few years ago, I had the privilege of listening to Gilbert Anaka speak. He's the architect of the All Blacks out of New Zealand.
That's cool.
He's an incredible human being. And so he talks about how, very simply, he looked at the organization when he started and they needed to do a cultural overhaul, and he drew a triangle, and he had mindset at the top, he had skill set at the left, and he had systems on the right. And he said, what do you think's the hardest thing to change in an organization or a team?
Top of the triangle.
No. Mm-mm. It's systems. We are creatures of habit. Building systems, changing behavior. So I can invite you, I can help you practice different mindsets. I can teach you skills, and we can practice them and repeat them until we've got the muscle memory of them. And that's really even the behavioral stuff, right? But it's the systems that actually can break or make a team's ability to perform. So it's that whole idea of we actually, if we don't test the systems that we're going to need in all the scenarios where the pressure could be particularly high, then those systems will break down. It's kind of that idea of routines, rituals, meetings. Like in business, we'd call it management systems. And for me, in the team context, it's like, how do we start things? How do we end things? And what are the systems of when we start, how people enter, how they exit? And so, it is some of the systems. And, I know mental performance people would help individual athletes look at what are their personal systems that help them keep the mindset and honor all this skill and practice they've done. What are the systems that allow them to do that? I look at that as an organizational or a team standpoint, because I think that becomes the multiplier of when you can build collective systems that hold space or a container for everybody's individual stuff. Then I think you've got magic that starts to happen. But most often, organizations, leaders, teams, we don't look at that stuff. We just take it for granted. And we sometimes chalk it up to luck. But I think we can get very intentional, whether it's I'm running the team of my family, whether I'm actually a teacher in a classroom, whether I'm a coach of, grassroots soccer or hockey. The way we do anything is the way we do everything. And I think that for us as creatures of habit, when we build really simple, clear standards and systems with the right support, you create environments that actually nurture, grow, and expand potential. But those are the stuff that tends to be invisible, or we might call it soft stuff, which I can't stand. And we miss the opportunity.
That's crazy. So there you go. I was really hoping I was going to get that answer right, but I guess we're all sitting here learning today. But it's funny, once you walked through that, I see it. I see it in my business. I see it in other things that I'm a part of, which is building those consistent, repeatable, well thought out processes builds the confidence in the teams that you're leading, that they make sense. But also, I'm also assuming within there the flexibility to iterate and change and go, this isn't working, right? We need feedback on this. We want open feedback on this. And then the process can be adjusted and shifted and get back on track. Yeah, that's neat. How do you balance the needs of let me back up there a minute. How many players and coaches end up on the coaching staff for an Olympic hockey team, roughly?
Oh, so how many will be on the final roster?
Yeah, final roster.
Okay. There's 23 players. International Hockey says 23 players on the roster for the games. And then there will be a head coach and 4 assistant coach.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you balance the needs as things progress? Because I'm sure there's more players right now at camp, obviously, than just 23. How do you balance the needs of an individual versus the needs of the team? Where do you what does that look like in making it all work?
Well, I'd have to say I give Troy Ryan, the head coach, an incredible amount of kudos the way he does that. He's masterful at it. And I think whether you're the coach or whether you're the CEO or whether you're the founder of a business or whatever else, I think it comes back to, and this is what I know very well about him, is really strong social, emotional, and relational intelligence. So it's ability to meet people where they are, listen empathically and with compassion, but having a very clear sense of direction. Like the essence for me of leadership anywhere is my ability to set direction, take others with me, and do the right thing. That's just kind of my basic. And it doesn't matter what sector or what business you're running.
Yeah, it's consistent through it all.
Right. And then I think the best leaders are able to balance the two when they do a couple things really well. They build trust, one in this case with the players, but then between the players.
Right, because you're also facilitating, because they're getting to know each other. So you're a bit of a facilitator of their trust being able to grow.
So much of that has been, how do we build deeper connections? So I can be a competitor or competing for a spot, but I've built the trust and respect that we're going to actually compete with each other and for each other. And then there's this idea of team identity, which is really around the culture we want to create. And then the third thing is, how do you build a feedback-rich environment where you're able to build systems that, feedback travels to and from and all the way around. And so much of my work, at least in the first few years and continues to be, is I call it the big 3 skills: the quality of the questions we ask to surface other people's thinking and seek understanding. The second one is listening to understand, not listening to fix or listening to talk.
That's a big one. I like that.
And this idea of feedback for me is, most of us, feedback is an F word most of us don't want to talk about. And yet, I think too many leaders and coaches and parents and teachers live in an echo chamber of their own piece, because the research would show the more senior I get, the less feedback I get, unless I set the systems and the stage up to always get it. And so when you build a system and an environment where feedback flows, not only the tough stuff, but in particular, the positive. How do we catch each other in those moments of brilliance? And are we telling each other that? And are we thanking each other for, thanks for doing that, or thanks for making that happen? Or, and so like when I think about some of my curriculum over the years with athletes or programs or organizations, I have to teach people how to say thank you. I have to teach people, how do you say to somebody, when you said that in that meeting today, that was actually a brilliant question. It caused us to stop and think about it. And people are like, I should say that? And I go, well, if you want me to repeat the behavior, you better, we learn faster. Our brains learn faster in more positive environments. I mean, I'm trying to think of where I found this, but, teams that have a positive to negative ratio of 6 or more to 1, like six positive to every negative, are actually going to learn and perform and accelerate But we spend so much time in our world and in our conversations looking as critics versus creators. And I think we miss so much opportunity to go, that was brilliant. How'd you do that?
And there's so much creative mindset within everybody, right? But it's like you even just kind of said it, oh, I should say that. Like, and it's like this fear of like, should I speak up or should I just, I'm being coached by somebody who has been doing this for decades, who has this laundry list of a resume, and what does my opinion matter in that, right? There was actually, I tell some stories, but there was something that I had heard where Star Wars, you're familiar with Star Wars, and I think this speaks really well to that. When you achieve a certain status, all of a sudden people quit being creative and they have the potential to become yes men, right? And they quit offering their opinions. But it was a story where George Lucas, back when the first 3 Star Wars, so technically 4, 5, 6 were created, it was new, right? And so everybody was creative and they're doing all these great things. And then, a couple decades go by, even longer, before he does 1, 2, 3. Well, by the time he had done 1, 2, 3, he had received so many accolades for all the work he had done that they didn't hit the mark. And there was a story where he was walking around, and instead of everybody offering feedback that maybe this isn't the way we should do it, this isn't the way we should do it, he was going around saying, I don't like this blue, I don't like that. And they're all just like, yes, boss, yes, boss, yes, boss, yes, boss. And they missed the mark. And so that hit with me because I'm 51 running a business and I'm going, I don't want yes men. How do I facilitate that culture of feedback loop and make sure people don't have the fear to share that information?
Well, it comes back to the research that says 90% of us think we are incredibly self-aware. Only 10% of us have the practices, the processes, the people that make sure we really are. So self-awareness on one is 2 pillars. One is, what am I thinking, feeling, wanting? Am I able to kind of check in with myself and I'm able to honestly assess what's really happening for me? But the other side of it is, when I show up into a room, I open my mouth and I do my thing, whether it's your business, my business, or anything else. What's the ripple effect of my energy? Am I a tsunami or am I a ripple? And I think I'm not going to know that until you get feedback, right? Like, I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing now if it wasn't for feedback I had early in my career through a 360 program that I was rolling out across the country for an organization at the time I was working with and leading that initiative around leadership. And I thought, I should go first. But it was the feedback I got that basically, the long and short of it was, I had some quite good feedback on my leadership qualities, but I was quite young for my age in the role that I played. But it was this comment that changed my leadership lens and my life forever. It was, I wonder if Judy knows her nickname is Dick.
I was just reading on this actually. So please continue, because I love how it created this self-awareness.
Yeah, and so much of leaders don't want to look at that. And our greatest fear, so you think about imposter syndrome, is something that is really us. When we double down on doubt, we overcompensate, I think, with certainty or false confidence. And I think when we, and this is what I give Gina and Troy incredible credit for what they have gone and done in terms of setting the clear purpose and direction of this program over 2 quads, the kind of environment they're trying to create, the people they've brought in, and then how we have been able to partner around the skill development and some of the systems around that. And I think, if I understand that my job as a leader, set direction, take others with me, and do the right thing, and that to do that, I have to actually double down on the human connection called trust, both between me and somebody, but then within that environment, so that I'm not the king or queen of all the answers, that I'm creating a shared identity for who we are together when we're at our best. And then I'm creating this place and space where I learn how to give, but I also learn how to receive. I learn how to ask, and that we're not afraid to rumble with disappointment and disagreement, and that our conflict is something that can be healthy and helpful versus hurtful. Then I think you've got it sounds simple, but it's not easy because it requires us to get out from behind ourselves and actually get curious about where am I really good and where can I be better? And here's what I see that's your superpower. And here's where, the kryptonite's showing up and getting in the way. And you even talking and referring about, the Star Wars piece and how, success can be our greatest actually impediment to continued success. Yep. It's true. Like the kind of leadership that takes something and starts it up and builds it to being, at the top of its game, the shift in mindset to going back to actually reevaluating and overcoming our natural biases as human beings is if we're not careful and being curious and always sort of being a beginner, it's what made us successful will actually ensure that complacency and our downfall, and like you say, the yes men or the yes women who can't tell us the truth.
Yeah, there ends up being a plateau that gets hit, and you don't even realize you're hitting the plateau. Next thing you know, you're falling down the mountain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's I'm just so excited for you. It's actually the more we go into this, it's just even the team itself. Just hearing how things are being managed. It's really neat getting a kind of a window into the inner workings of a high performance, or just somebody who coaches high performance people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's and that's the privilege for me, right? When I think about the entrepreneurs I get to work with and the leadership teams, these are teams that are already, or individuals are already good, and they're saying, I actually want to be world class and great. Can you help me? Because I'm tired of everybody telling me what I want to hear. And I'm like, well, I am going to tell you the truth. And if you're absolutely fantastic at this, I want to make sure you stand in that and own it. Because this is the other part that I see with so many high performance people is their inability to receive truly and own what makes them really great is also part of, I think, what I help people, like I help do is going, do you not see that when you say and do this is the impact you have? Oh, well, that's no big deal. I'm like, actually, stop. Own that. Like I need you to see that as your unique intelligence, because every single one of us has, like, there's skills we can go, oh, everybody has that. But it's the way we use our experience and our expertise and the energy by which we share it into the world. That, I think, creates this really cool essence that if most of us never have somebody tell us, let me tell you what your essence really is. Or sadly, we wait till somebody's career is over, and that's when they learn all these things and the impact they had. And I think that's actually sad.
Yeah, the retirement speeches, right? Oh my gosh, look at the impact you had on me, and it's the end of their career. I'm a firm believer in everybody working in their areas of strength. Like, it's you don't need somebody who's a jack of all trades, master of none. You look for people to complement in the areas maybe you're not strong in, very much similar to the way you would put a sports team together or a management team together. But it's really interesting about the self-awareness and owning not only what you're good at, but also what you're not good at. It's that moment where we all have these blind spots, but I've always actually only thought of blind spots as things I'm blind to that, it have a negative context to them. I've never actually thought of a blind spot as being, no, you're actually good at this. You need to know you're good at this because you can work harder on this and get even better and give that back even more. So so when you're working with a little bit of a crossover into the management side here. Yeah. So when you're working with business leaders, how do they receive that? Because you already kind of said they're like, no big deal, right? How do you crack that nut? How do you really get them to understand that no, this is your gift, and you need to lean into this even further?
One of the things when I contract to do coaching and mentoring work with leaders is we explore. I use an assessment that helps people map their internal experience when they're under stress and in conflict, which is very rare. So I'm like, these pressure moments, here's your coping mechanisms and where you go to. So I'm going to kind of hold it out there and help you see what you can't see, first of all. But I actually right up front say, if you were going to work together, these are the things that you can expect from me. Yeah. And then I also am like, what are the things that I need to know about you that is okay or not okay for us to go to?
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the most important questions I ask business leaders is or anyone for that matter, is if I'm seeing or knowing something that is absolutely getting in the way of your success or the goals you've told me you want, how would you like me to tell you that?
Most of them probably just say, be as honest as possible.
Right, straight up.
But honesty hurts too sometimes.
Right. But I think I deliver honesty as the kind truth. I'm not here to blow smoke anywhere. You've engaged me to say, I want to get better. And so we have an agreement that if I say this is one of those moments where I actually think you not acknowledging this strength of yours is getting in the way, you're playing small. So sometimes I'm like, you're playing small. And they're like, fuck you, Judy. Like, I've had that. I'm like, okay, you tell me why this is actually okay for you. Other times I'm like, you know what? You not acknowledging or leaning into and learning this is actually also getting in the way of your success. So it can be both. But like I always say to people, if I want it more than you, then we have to stop working together. Because like I so want people to achieve what it is they've told me they want to achieve that I get excited about it. So whether I'm coaching the women's national team or I'm talking to a founder of a startup or I'm dealing with a leadership team that's saying, you know, we're good, but we're not great. And then I'm sitting there making them rumble and they're like, we don't like this. I'm like, well, this is the breakthrough space. We got to turn up the heat and help you navigate the stuff you've been avoiding, but let me guide you through it and help give you the skills so that over time you don't need me, but that you understand that this is the learning space. And like, I think we're all so afraid of disagreement and disappointment that in whitewashing it, we're not actually giving ourselves as leaders permission to learn and show up in the current context. And I think when I just was writing about this today with somebody, when imposter syndrome, when in other words, I'm doubling down on doubt of, can I do this? Do I know the answer? I should know the answer. Then fear is riding shotgun. And when fear is riding shotgun, I'm starting to pull away. I'm less connected. I'm less clear. I'm less.
Yeah, you're less invested. You're less everything. Right?
Right, because less. I've now gone inwards to protect myself. Unfortunately, great leaders learn how to get out from behind themselves and say, I don't know the answer to this, but I got some questions I think that would help us get through this. Or I'm curious, based on what you're seeing, you know, with these customers over here or what you're seeing, you know, in this space, how would you see it? And how do we share a collective space? Because I think this idea of, I'm calling it authentic interactions, is what we're all craving in this world of incredible disruption and confusion. And fear is everywhere. And I think we've got this really fascinating opportunity as leaders and teams is to override our natural neurobiological hardwiring to go inwards and say, no, we're going to choose as a team to lean in and be willing to actually explore stuff we don't know. And in doing that, we take our collective intelligence and create something better than any one of us could do on our own.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, get vulnerable with each other, learn about each other, learn what all of our strengths are, and then make that the secret sauce to the growth and success of an organization. I
mean, like, I would tell you, like, you know, I've had moments when I went into the first camp of huge imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Like, and yet when I give myself permission to say, well, what am I afraid of? And really look at, well, here's what I know, but here's what I don't know. So in this idea of what I don't know that's causing me angst, how do I get curious? And so sometimes it's, can I hang out with you today? What's a day in the life of what your role does? And how does this fit into the picture of it? Or when you say that, what does that mean? Because it sounds like Greek to me.
Yep. Yeah, and learn. Listen and learn.
Yeah, and as I listen and learn, I can take the language of that sector or that business, or in this case, hockey, put it through the lens of what I know about human behavior, leadership, high-performing teams, change, great communication. So when I give myself permission to slow it all down, so to me, curiosity is the first step when we're feeling unsure and fearful. The next step after curiosity means then I'm usually going to have courage, which allows me to take action. And in taking action, I start to build competence. And from competence over time, I rebuild confidence. But I think our avoidance of those first steps, thinking we can go from zero to confidence, we forget all this wisdom we've built by mistakes and trial and error up to this point in our 50s, right? Like you and I are of similar age. And it's just like, I didn't get here overnight. I have multiple chapters and experiences, critical experiences that have given me the wisdom. But if I also have the wisdom, I like the term Adam Grant says, he talks about confident humility, this idea that I know what I know, but I'm humble enough to know I don't know everything. And I think that in of itself is such a cool space to be in as a leader.
Yeah, Adam Grant is great too. Anyone that doesn't read his books should. So him and Brene Brown, they're pretty funny if you've ever listened to a podcast with the two of them together. Whew.
Well, her book, Stronger Ground, launches today. So.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Hey,
trying to get a hand on that.
I want to talk about your work with youth. I know you and I chatted about that a little bit before, and that's, a big passion of yours is mentoring, upcoming generations. And I want to play a little scenario for you. I have something that came up in my life with somebody that I know that seems all too common nowadays. And again, touching on the sports arena, but I had a good friend of mine, and her son is a competitive ball player. Fully committed to this. Took the year off before college just to focus on getting better at ball. Got drafted into a college down in the States. And I was talking with her a few weeks ago, and she said he is like depressed, right? He's 19. He's moved away from home. He worked so hard to get to this point, and now there's no excitement in it. So she said, would you mind reaching out? So I did. And I talked to the young man, and he said, Cole's Notes version is, I'm burned out. Like, I know this is what I worked so hard for, but it took all of my energy to get here. And now it's like, he's finding it hard to find the fun, if that makes sense. Like, do you see that, especially now with how our young athletes are so solely focused on individuals? Like, when I say individual sports, I mean like one sport. Hockey is a 365-day-a-year sport now. Are you seeing burnout happen in these young kids at earlier ages? And then I would ask you, in a situation like this young man, how does someone like this overcome it?
Oof, that's a good one. So I believe this generation, somewhere along the way, their worth and value, we said your marks and your medals is a metric of your value. And somewhere in the midst of that, I think for many of us as parents, we stopped realizing that the success of our children is not a reflection of whether we're good or bad parenting. I think parenting has become a competitive sport. And I think we've lost the plot that we're not here to showcase the performance of our children. I think we're here as parents to actually nurture the character and the dreams of the people that have chosen us as their parents. And so that's one thing. I look at this next generation, and I often say, okay, when you think about the three adults that play a role in the shaping of the character, the mindset, and the lives and the confidence of our young people, are parents, teachers, and coaches. And you look at the environment for all three right now. And when those three players are not doing okay. So we've got more examples of overloaded, overwhelmed, stretched parents who are making choices that are about what keeps them in the mix of the, like, I think of my own parenting space, right? I made choices that was like, well, we got to do this because everybody else is doing it.
Versus as did I. Yeah, it's keeping up with the Joneses.
But when you roll it back in and go, what matters to us as a family, and how do we make that, you think about the state of education and teachers right now. So you think about how teachers, parents, and coaches all have a role to play. So sometimes we don't win the parent lottery, we don't win the teacher lottery, but at least you hope at least 1 or 2 out of 3 of those over the course of your early life, you have a coach or a teacher who makes an incredible difference, and you've got at least one parent who's nurturing, protective, and a good guide. Somewhere along the way, we made school not about learning and sport not about playing. And so these kids know how to work. We haven't shown them how to rest. We haven't shown them how to play. And, if you look at the research and, there are people much smarter and much more dialed into what's happening in youth sports, but the over-specialization actually is a huge risk, the entire Olympic movement. And then we've got this incredible focus on the financial outcomes of these games that these kids play. And so the pressure. And then after a while, it's like, who am I doing this for?
Yeah, and I think that's really a lot of the times what it comes down to is there a reckoning where they're like, I'm actually not doing this for myself.
Right. I got caught up in the game of mom and dad want me to do this, or this is where all my friends are. They've gone. And I think what our young people need is mentors who can say, what's your why? Why now? Why this? If not this, then let's talk about what. Let's actually repackage all these experiences you've had up to the age of 19 and go, how do I channel this? Versus seeing my entire identity. And this is the challenge, right? The depression, the anxiety is I am my sport versus I am me. I play this sport at a very high level, and I also like this and I also like that. And I think this is kind of why, for me, we're not teaching all this social relational skills to our young people. We are not creating spaces for connection and conversation, either peer to peer or parent to child.
Sure.
And I think when we see these kids burning out, we're pushing harder versus actually getting curious and listening longer.
Yeah, we're not, we're not open to necessarily hearing the full story. And I'm guilty of this as anybody with my own kids.
I mean, I'm in the process of rolling out a masterclass around the new science of motivating young people. And it's based on the book by David Yeager called 10 to 25. You can kind of see it in the back here.
I read it. I saw it. I think you put that up on LinkedIn a few months ago. So it was way too smart for me, for the record.
But I think when you distill it down, because he digs into the neuroscience of the adolescent brain in this age and stage, and really what it comes down to for me is our young people need role models, people whose behavior and his example about living an honest and a full life. And that when we teach them and give them perspective on asking better questions of themselves or asking better questions around themselves and listening to their inner wisdom and giving them social skills that allow them to have the conversations and help them actually balance this incredible networked high-tech thing that they all have with the fact that we're all neurobiologically wired for connection. And I think sometimes when we keep our kids so busy, the transactional relationships they're building, not necessarily the deep ones. And so I'm saying to coach, I'm working with coaches at the youth and club level. I'm working with teachers in the classroom. I'm just saying, it's not about being everything to everybody with these kids. But what I loved about the book is the term grown-splaining. We just have to stop talking at and talking over our young kids. Yeah. And we have to actually model what we wished for when we were their age but never got, which is somebody who talks to and talks with them and helps them make sense of what they're doing and why they're doing it. And if it no longer fits, how do we give them permission to explore other options or repackage this incredible group of things that they've done and imagine a different thing that could be more exciting? But Yeah, it's just, the research is there. It's a more anxious generation. The pressure to perform is greater than ever. There's even some early research in the States that is actually tying pressure to perform at a young age to early trauma in our youth.
Wow. Hey.
Yeah.
And that ripples for somebody's entire life.
Mm-hmm. Until they've got the place and space to make a new meaning around it. Because I think it's not about taking challenge away, because that's what Jaeger would say is our children need to know what good stress is, and we actually need to challenge them. We can't take away disappointment. We can't take away disagreement, but we do get to help them navigate through it. And I think I go back to the big 3 skills. What if our young people knew how to ask great questions? What if they knew how to listen? And what if they knew how to ask for and receive and offer feedback in a way that they trained people how to treat them?
So let me ask you, why is this not being taught to them? Right?
I agree. I just, it's so funny because I just think of, all this work that I've been doing with athletes was born out of an intervention 10 years ago in my son's grade 5 class, which turned into Role Model Academy and me doing this work with kids in grade 4, 5, and 6. It was my mom project. And the irony is that all of that work and design has turned into a lot of the baseline of what I'm doing in sport. I brought it and went, I think this could work. These are young people. What if I did it with a bit slightly different context and upgraded a little bit based on their social emotional maturity? So I'm trying to, and I am engaging as many teachers and coaches in that journey with me as will let. And that, when I talk to workplace leaders, it's like, how many of you are parents? Well, what would happen if your conversations with your kids were exactly like you're trying to have at work? Just the context is different. Because the adolescent brain sniffs out disrespect faster than anything else.
And they're sharp.
There they are. But they're going, are you going to help me?
Right.
Do you respect me?
Yeah. Are you here to help, or are you here to hinder? And I like how you said earlier, quit talking over and at them and have a conversation with them. Right.
Yeah.
And be an active listener in that space.
Be curious.
Yeah. That's
what do you love about it? What do you hate about this? Like it's not easy stuff, because all of this happens in a bigger system. Mm-hmm. Right? You look at where our school system is. You look at where the sports system has gone in terms of over-specialization, telling people that if you want your kids to get ahead, you got to pay this for this camp here and this for this.
Holy moly. Well, and that's where the competition becomes with the parents. And I know them, and it's like, sending their kids to, literally uprooting their family and moving to a different province so their kid can go play hockey at a high level development team as a teenager.
But so imagine that as a young person watching what thing is, and then, the pressure on you of that. And who knows whether there's side servings of resentment by your siblings or even one of your parents, or like when everything becomes about the special child, I think we create problems. I believe I've always believed that we get the children we get because they're here to teach us that's which we haven't learned.
I like that spin on it, actually. I got to think about that one a little bit more tonight when I think about my 2 kids, though. So let me sit on that one for a while.
Well, you can imagine what my kids say about having a mother like me.
It's got to be a challenge, honestly.
It is. It is.
Quit analyzing me, Mom.
Or they're like, how come I have to go and advocate for myself? I'm like, well, I'm coaching you to do that. I'm not going to rescue you. Yeah, but can't you just be like all the other parents and just say that this is shit and you're going to fix it for me? I'm like, I could, but no.
Yeah, exactly. Curious, how old are your kids?
They're almost 20 and 22.
Okay, so we're almost identical. I got 22 and 19. So, yep. Yeah, it's fun watching them in this moment of life. I get to work with both mine, which is great.
Okay, that's cool.
It's really cool. And I think most days, trust me, this podcast has caused them both significant trauma. So they may be looking for some therapy sessions down the road. I just said this to them the other day. I'm like, well, really, I'm just doing a favor to the future generation of Volks out there that, their father or their grandfather or great grandfather's voice will always be there to be found. So, it's legacy building is the way I'm looking at it, selfishly anyways.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a long-winded, but I think it's there's not a simple answer. I think it's just the integration of how do we build more emotionally intelligent or mature parents and systems around that? Because if you ask coaches and teachers and athletes, they'll say the greatest issue for them to navigate is parents. And yet, if you ask any parent, their intention comes from a place of love. Yep. Their behavior doesn't always demonstrate that.
Very well put. I like that a lot. Judy, I want to pivot on a final note back to the Canada women's hockey team.
Okay.
So currently one of the best in the world. What cultural elements of this team is going to set it apart from the successful teams of the past?
I'm smiling because part of me doesn't want to share the answer.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, if you want to take the fifth, go ahead. Because then, this will be good. Because then I'm going to put it in the queue for after the Olympics to come back and ask this question.
If you watched the game in Beijing, if you watched any of the games or any of the footage, what I hope people would see is this incredible joy. The relationships that this team has built. And what we're trying to do is take familiar next level.
That's good. And I know there's a little more to that, but we'll get into that post-gold medal. When you're playing at an Olympic level, obviously the goal is gold, right? How do you work with these coaches and athletes to ensure that they also understand success is more than just a gold medal?
Oh, they know that already. The expectation is that outcome. And I mean, this is why I think it's so interesting, because this team understands it's the process and the preparation and the practice that makes the bigger difference. And so I'm in there doing small tweaks or I'm not even in there doing that yet. It's looking for where are those small spaces and places that sets the environment up. We did some really cool work around values at the last camp. And so, it was really funny because we got into a conversation. I had decks of cards with values and they had to each sort individually. And anyway, quickly is I had them shrink their list down. And they didn't like me for it because I ultimately said, what are your top 3? And I want you to rank those. And then we did some work around what that looks like, sounds like in our words, our language, and our impact. But the question was, but there's so many more of these values, Judy, that are important to me. And I go, well, then you're aspirational. You're not intentional.
Too many.
I said, until I said, so you've locked in and you are fully embodied in your values. When you hear people describe you with those words or synonyms of those words, then you have embodied it. And when you've done that with these 3, you can add more to your list. I said, this is your to-be list, not your to-do list. And what we all need to do is be our best. And so I want you to think about, as we move through this journey, these 3 words through the lens of what does the best in the world of those 3 words for me look like, sound like, and feel like every day. And if every single person in this world thought about what's the best version of me, and what values do I hold true to myself that brings out that best for me, whatever that is. If I did that 70% of the time, I think we'd have a lot less judgment, criticism, blame, and excuses dressed up as very good reasons.
Yeah, the world will look a lot different. I agree with you with that one.
Because when I said, if you want to be good at everything, you can't be great at anything.
Yeah.
And I said, we want to be great. So I need you to shrink.
Bring it in. Yeah. Yeah, I actually really like that. 3 things. Yeah. Mm. When you're done those, then we move on.
Yeah. Like, think about how big our to-do lists are. If I showed up every day and I had 3 things to be: kind, curious, and maybe candid. Those would be my 3. And I did that more times than not in most of my conversations. What would my impact be? I think it would be pretty good. I'd be able to get through things. I'd be able to look at my list and go, what's really important? What's not important? How do I have the conversations with these people through that lens? Then I might get things done. But if I'm not clear around who I'm going to be, then I'm just going to do things. And depending on my mood or my energy or whatever, it's not as intentional. It's more reactional.
Yeah, totally. And it's not going to bring out the best version of yourself.
No, not at all.
Judy, last question I want to ask you. And it touches on, athletes, coaches, leaders, even parents. But what would one practical step anyone, be it an athlete, coach, leader, or parent, could take to strengthen their mental game today? What is the first step to strengthen your mental game?
What's coming up first for me is pause and ask yourself, when I'm at my best, what does that look like? And how do I set that intention every time I start a conversation, enter a room? Because I think when we start first from a place of strength in ourselves and we know who that person is, we can practice being him or her better. And then because we're clear on that, our ability to give and receive feedback is better, because when we'll know what we know and we'll know what we don't know. So I think the mental gain sometimes is pause, look inside, and ask the question, who am I, or who do I want to be? And how do I want to contribute or be in service of this relationship, this team, or this particular goal? Because I think taking is different than being in the service of it. And I think when I start, my mental game starts with actually knowing myself. Because at the end of the day, self-awareness is the foundation of great leadership. And if I don't know who I am, I'm not going to know how to manage myself in the moments that matter most. And I think leadership happens in moments. It doesn't happen in meetings.
I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not even going to offer any of my opinions on that. I want to leave it as pause, because I think even for myself, you just gave me something in that end moment to take away from today. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Judy, it was amazing having you on here.
Thank you. It was a fun conversation, Randy.
I can't say how excited I am for you. I do hope you'll entertain coming back on, even prior to the Olympics, possibly, like in advance of it, if your schedule would allow, but then definitely after. And just the best of luck with everything. It's a great group, and they're lucky to have you. And I'm excited to see how the journey goes for them.
So, thanks so much, Randy.
All right.